let's go into your breakdown on Brock Purdy in his week 2 performance. Didn't play week 1 against Tennessee, did play in week 2 against the Saints. And some of the things that you highlight about Purdy are things that he clearly has spent a lot of time working on. Most specifically, he does play with a pretty consistent base with his feet under him. He does play in good rhythm. The ball seems like it comes out on time pretty consistently with accuracy. I've seen in this preseason an increased level of kind of decisiveness in his footwork that all probably goes back to his film study and his knowledge of this offense. So before we get into some particular plays on Brock, give me your overall view of how you feel about him as a prospect and how he's evolved this summer as opposed to what you saw maybe a year ago.
Well, I mean, I will start with just the overall player aspect. I think, and forgive me if you guys talk about it all the time because you're in the 49er world, but it's such a great story. Sometimes I think you can really forget because it's slowly become a little bit more normal, but to go where he went in the draft and then to take advantage of his opportunity and basically overcome the number 3 pick in the draft and solidified this spot as his, and he's earned it through playing at a really high level. Well, it's an awesome story. And I just really pull for him. And especially from someone who I can remember his college film and remember being excited. And then I can also remember being like, hey, did we get a regression here the final year? He played a lot of college football. The film, for whatever reason, wasn't quite as good at the tail end as it was maybe on the way up. And so then to be able to do that and take advantage of his opportunity and to do just what you said, he walked in there immediately and played with great base. You can see the quickness, the kind of twitch that he plays with. He might not be a dynamic, straight line runner, but he can move, he can evade, he can create, he can extend. And that's the way the position has evolved. And I think that's really what he's done and put his stamp on this version of the offense is his capacity to be decisive, to do the things that Shanahan wants and to add on, to extend, to create. Now normally that's really good. This preseason, we saw, potentially what can happen sideways when you throw it and don't see everybody on the field. But I would never want to lose that in his game. That's one of my favorite parts of what he does.
My favorite part of where he's at right now, JT, is he's got, and I would say this to him if I, talk to him in the locker room, he's got his dial of risk reward at the exact right setting. Like, I hope no coach ever screws it up. I hope no experience ever screws it up. What I'm talking about is that, that over aggressiveness to try to fit the ball in a spot you really can't versus I'm going to take chances and try to challenge the boundaries versus I'm going to be safe with the football, take care of the football, not give it away. I think this guy is as good as almost any young quarterback at this point in his history of protecting the football and yet maintaining aggressiveness. And you played the position. It's a very difficult place to get to. And he seems like he's there and has been able to stay there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would add on that there is an element that is interesting with him in this system is for whatever reason, it feels like in the past, this system has maybe had guardrails up on the position where that either they didn't have the capacity or they weren't asked to, or they wasn't promoted. But he basically has kind of said, I'm going to put my own stamp on it and done exactly what you said and had that kind of a little bit more risk to it. I think the other thing that's hard for me to remember all the time, because I have many problems, but one of my problems is I watch a lot of different teams. And so I'll forget sometimes like, oh, hey, he's coming back from a big time surgery last year. Like it's not going to feel perfect at the start of the year. And so sometimes I'll be like, I wish he would rip this deep, corner, deep flag, deep pylon, and realize, maybe he was operating at less than 100% for part of the season. And so you have to build into that part of it. For me, that's something that's just another added layer on the impressive journey that this dude's been on in his short career so far.
As far as Brock this summer, it's hard to evaluate, right? Because he's played some high level football. He's played in the Super Bowl. He's played in a couple NFC Championship games. But to me, what I'm seeing is that when you take away, as you call them, the Avengers, you take away some of the incredible weapons, and there's more pressure. And not only is there more pressure, there's a combination of more pressure, there's less space on the field. And the word that I've heard you use a lot in QB school is wonky. Things get a little wonky when you take away a lot of the premier talent. I don't know. I feel like I'm watching Brock this summer, and I'm seeing a guy who looks a little impatient, a little like that drive where he ran around and threw the interception. And he basically didn't see the corner on the other side of the field, kind of lurking and reading his eyes. It was a terrible play for several reasons, and you highlighted it. But that was such an uncharacteristic play. And then the other play where he's trying to find Braden Willis on the sideline, and he yelled at Willis at the end of the play, come back to the ball along the sideline. And Willis didn't read that. He's a young player. And Brock ran out of bounds and took a sack. And it's like he would never do that in the regular season. And it just seems like his footwork, his timing, his decision-making are his strengths. But at least in this preseason, I feel like his decision-making has taken a back step. And I don't know if it's something to worry about. I don't think it is, but I'm definitely seeing some questionable decision-making from Brock this summer.
Well, I mean, y'all would know more than I would. I wouldn't look too, closely at one preseason game where he plays a small amount with, guys that he probably isn't going to play a lot of regular season snaps with. Now, that's not fair to them or, to the whole preseason setup. That part of it is different too. I think he's proven himself as a decision maker to be able to give some grace with that stuff. I will say that when he extends and has that creative element to it, I feel like that's a big positive for his game, but you're always living on the edge. I don't care if you're Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. When you go full field reverse and throw back, you never really know and can see the whole field like that. So that part of it was one of those one-off ones I think you learn from. You put it in a box, you never see it again. The one where he stepped out of bounds on the for the sack, that's almost, I almost feel like, and I think I said it in the video, hopefully I said it, like those are almost my issues more than anyone else. Like the difference in -2 yards in a preseason game means nothing. But if you take that sack in the season, I can tell you that I'm going to guess that Chris would lose his mind. I know a lot of offensive line coaches that would come out of their skin for a sack like that when you could just throw it away. And so those types of things to me, are not that big of a deal. They're more my issues than the offense's issues, the Brock's issues. And so I would just look for him to continue to kind of build on what he's already proven he can do. And then that's the thing that I feel confident with him and this group is they're proven. They really are. Now they just have to do it when it matters most. And that's not a fair thing to judge anybody, but that's really their reality and the standard that they've set as an organization, as an offense.
You were a 6th-round pick in the 2002 draft at UC Davis. He was the last pick in the draft, the 7th-round pick. When you watch him, and you've read his story, and you said you watched him at Iowa State there in Ames, why do you think people missed on Brock Purdy? Or is it that Brock Purdy that he had kind of bottom level NFL throwing arm talent, and he went to Jacksonville and gained a little bit of heat on the fastball, working through mechanics, and maybe that gave him requisite NFL arm strength, where maybe prior to that he had slightly below requisite NFL arm strength? I'm guessing, really, JT. What do you think? Why did so many teams miss on a guy who played in the Big 12 and was quite successful?
Well, I will tell you this. I've thought about it in the past, and I almost thought about going back to watch my own videos, which I rarely, if ever, think I would ever do. But I know that there's a video, I think it's still out there, maybe it's been blocked since then, but of Brock pre-senior year where I was pretty excited. And I think I felt like he was like a mid-round guy just with his capacity to how he was playing. And then I remember being disappointed going back and watching his last year in college film. And I think I'm verbalizing, probably if it was for the Patreon community, I definitely like vomited out whatever I was thinking. And so I remember being frustrated and wondered why, there was a regression, because I feel like a regression is one of those things where it can really be a detriment to your draft status. And that probably impacted it more than anything else. And so I don't know. It would be an interesting question for you next time you talk to Brock, if you get him in a moment where you can say, hey, do you feel like there was a regression from with your last season performance in college football and why? And then what was been the biggest jump since then? What was the and maybe he would say Will and that crew in Jacksonville and all those things, and that's probably an element of it.
I'll tell you one thing I do really respect about Brock is he will get in the face of a receiver and tell him what's up if he makes a mistake. You know, if you're a receiver and the route's you're supposed to go in, like last year there was a route where Ray McLeod was supposed to, break in. He broke out because the defender happened to be sitting in, and Brock aired him out. And I asked him about it. He's like, "Hey, I got to know where my guys are going to be. You can't deviate. You can't just kind of go and do your own thing out there." JT, is that part of being an NFL quarterback that you got to have some serious hardcore screaming matches with some of your guys at times to make sure everybody's on the same page? Or how do you view that?
I don't think you have to do that. What I would tell guys and what I feel like the best guys do are they're just themselves. So some guys are more comfortable with verbal confrontation. Other guys will wait till we're having a meal together. Other guys will wait till we're in the one-on-one opportunity to say, hey, you can't screw me on a route like that, or this is what I'm expecting you to do. I think the easiest way to think of it is you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there and not fool the quarterback. And so if you're fooling the quarterback at all, it's not a trait that you want. It's something that you're probably going to impact your capacity to be on the field. And so you want guys that you can trust. You want detail-oriented guys. You hear a lot about accountability and all those types of things, and how you hold people accountable can be different for different people. I was someone who wasn't afraid of a little confrontation, but there have been other guys who do it really well for a really long time that would totally never do that and always do the one-on-one sideway, in the hallway type of, hey, we'll hash this out ourselves type thing.